For those of you who do not know, because non-Star Wars fans who don't know still exist, shockingly enough, Emperor Palpatine, a.k.a. Darth Sidious, is the primary antagonist of the Star Wars saga, portrayed in live action by the stage actor Ian McDiarmid and by various voice actors in the tie-in media, examples including Nick Jameson, Ian Abercrombie, Sam Witwer, and Tim Curry. This breakdown of Emperor Palpatine's martial proficiencies and weaponry was not drafted for a matchup, but instead as a dedicated profile of Darth Sidious's lightsaber skills, specifically in pre-Disney Legends material. I am not discussing Sheev Palpatine. For this reason, I will be taking Palpatine's appearances in the 2008 Clone Wars animated series into account, as the series is still pre-Disney. Furthermore, Palpatine is the one established character who isn't done dirty by TCW, his appearances reflecting well on him and actually adding to what we know, as opposed to retconning and replacing the existing lore with an inferior copy, as is TCW's usual trend. This breakdown of Emperor Palpatine's martial arts will be emphasizing his direct combat feats and training, and will be drawn from the following sources listed in chronological order: Darth Plagueis, The Wrath of Darth Maul, the TCW episodes The Lawless and Sacrifice, Darth Maul Son of Dathomir, Revenge of the Sith, Dark Times A Spark Remains, The Force Unleashed, Return of the Jedi, and Dark Empire. Background information on the Star Wars setting will be drawn from the following: the complete Star Wars Encyclopedia, the complete Visual Dictionary, Lightsabers, A Guide to Weapons of the Force, the Book of Sith, the Jedi Path, and the Jedi Academy Training Manual. With all of that out of the way, let's begin. Starting from the top with the weapons he wielded, Emperor Palpatine constructed several lightsabers over the course of his career, all based on the original hilt he assembled as Darth Plagueis' apprentice. Elegant and sleek, the handle was shorter than most at 19 centimeters, making it easy to conceal. The casing was composed of lightsaber-resistant Frike alloy, while the Arodium-capped emitter projected a red blade generated by a single synthetic crystal. The dark-side-attuned synth crystals manufactured by the Sith generally traded handling and maneuverability for increased cutting power and a potential blade disruption capability against Jedi lightsabers. His original hilt featured a golden finish and spent decades stored within a Neuranium statue of Sistros in Palpatine's office, while the spare lightsabers, of which he had at least 2, were finished in black. As the reborn Emperor on Biss, Palpatine kept trophy Jedi lightsabers stored throughout his stronghold, specifically wielding one of a set of 3 kept in his cloning lab against Luke Skywalker. This nondescript hilt projected a blue blade, likely generated by a naturally occurring Ilum crystal, more stable and reliable than a dangerously overpowered synth crystal. Moving on to his confirmed training proficiencies, Darth Sidious is confirmed to have mastered all 7 classical lightsaber forms and demonstrated an advanced mastery of Jarkai twin blade combat. As Darth Plagueis' apprentice, he wasn't permitted to wield a lightsaber until several years into his training, which instead emphasized employing and countering various conventional weapons and martial arts. Specifically, Palpatine has wielded vibroblades, force pikes, and blasters, and has made savage use of hand-to-hand combat techniques. This in mind, I would characterize Palpatine as a Sith weapon master, with the closest analog to his skill configuration being his first apprentice, Darth Maul, who possessed an overall training foundation in the Teräs Käsi martial art and lightsaber training based on Nyman and Jarkai, with the ferocity form Juyo as the cherry on top. Examining Palpatine's moveset through the lens of the described techniques of the Seven Forms, he favored the linear defensive stances of Makashi and Sarisu, keeping his blade extended towards the opponent and employing both thrusting attacks and smooth blocking sequences. However, he overwhelmingly favored Ataru's acrobatic rotations and Juyo's staggered attacks, while treating his entire body as a weapon through the incorporation of hand-to-hand techniques. He has executed Shicho Sarlacc sweeps to strike multiple targets, and disarming slashes to rid opponents of their lightsabers, and opened his confrontation with Yoda with a Gemso High Guard and Falling Avalanche strike. He supported this unpredictable offensive component with fluid ripostes derived from Makashi and Gemso. His application of Naiman was akin to Exar Kun's, emphasizing the Jarkai weapons training and expressed through his use of gyroscopic rising whirlwind spring attacks and twin strike power blows when dual wielding. However, though quick on the draw with his force abilities, Palpatine has never been observed employing Naiman's force integration techniques, instead deactivating his lightsabers whenever he unleashed his powers. Though I regard the battle between Darth Sidious and Grandmaster Yoda depicted in the TCW Season 6 episode Sacrifice to be invalid as a martial feat, given that it was a mental battle that took place in an illusory world created by Palpatine, it is a perfect diorama for the Dark Lord's tactics and conduct. The situation he created was a clone assault on his headquarters in the Limerge building led by Yoda and Anakin Skywalker, forcing his adversaries to come to him on his home turf. Furthermore, Sidious shamelessly exploited and sacrificed his allies to buy time for himself, and used guided retreats to stage manage his opponents, while subverting them by literally cutting the ground from beneath their feet. And whenever possible, the Sith Lord attacked vulnerable targets as a psychological manipulation tactic, forcing his compassionate Jedi challengers to choose between saving lives or continuing the fight. Palpatine's ultimate emphasis on dominating his enemies by breaking their spirits demonstrated his adherence to the Sith Dunmok tradition. Looking back on Sidious's early training under Darth Plagueis, he was taught to channel the dark side and to hone his skills by culling the herd, embodying the predatory swarm. Master and apprentice engaged in high-speed hunts on the world of Buoyant, cutting down quadruped herd animals with vibroblades, practicing blast deflection in live-fire exercises on Hypori, and participating in ritual combat against the Cursidian hordes, using force pikes to deliver non-lethal takedowns. However, though Palpatine was very active in arranging assassinations and navigating hostage situations, the first time we see him engage in direct combat is against his political rival Pax Team, foiling the Grand Senator's attempted assassination of Darth Plagueis in the Phobosy Lodge, the two Sith unleashing carnage beyond explanation against the Maladians hired by Team, and subsequently purging Team's penthouse apartment while armed with Plagueis' lightsaber, gleefully butchering men, women, and children. The latter half of Sidious's apprenticeship was occupied with training his secret apprentice, Darth Maul. Among other things, the young Zabrak was regularly placed in life-threatening danger, everything from locking the child in his room with a swarm of dinkos as punishment for flinching, to cutting him loose in the Mustafarian hellscape with only the clothes on his back. Sidious saw to Maul's formal training by enrolling him in the Orsis Academy, while mixing in regular lightsaber sparring sessions. When the Night Sister clan mother Talzin conspired with one of the Academy instructors to reclaim Maul, Sidious resolved the conflict with the Night Sisters diplomatically and dispatched Maul to purge the Orsis Academy, snipping any loose ends. For Maul's final test, Sidious cut him loose on Hypori with a horde of assassin droids hunting him before confronting him directly. Maul fought to the bitter end, successfully pressuring Sidious's defenses before being disarmed, but passed the test, and was dubbed Darth Maul. However, though Sidious was the one who provided Maul with the schematics for the double-bladed lightsaber, he himself regarded it as little more than a barbarian's weapon. Appropriately, Sidious's next direct combat during the Clone Wars was against Maul, now a Sith renegade with his own secret apprentice, the Night Brother barbarian Savage Opress. Though initially content to allow the pair to run wild as Jedi killers, the moment they seized control of Mandalore and Death Watch, they became a blip on Palpatine's radar, and he showed up in person to deal with them. Alternating between twin lightsaber combat and telekinetic manhandling, he guided the battle out of the Mandalorian royal palace and down into an open plaza. After momentarily disabling Maul with a force push, Sidious made a fool of Savage Opress in single combat, brutally executing the hulking brute to psychologically torment Maul. His final bout with Maul mirrored their first serious duel on Hypori, his former apprentice's fury allowing him to briefly pressure Sidious, but ultimately being no match for Sidious's superior dark force power, who reduced Maul to begging for his life before taking him prisoner. However, the assistance of Death Watch and Mother Talzin allowed Maul to break free of Sidious's clutches and continue to make a nuisance of himself. After Maul managed to capture Sidious's current apprentice, the fallen Jedi Count Dooku, Sidious brought General Grievous along as his number 2 for the confrontation on Dathomir, where Maul fought alongside a Talzin-possessed Dooku. Grievous engaged Maul and kept him tied up long enough for Sidious to overpower Talzin and exorcise her from Dooku's body. Maul was forced to flee, while Talzin expended her limited energies in a futile force duel against Sidious and Dooku before being executed by Grievous. Though Maul remained alive and in control of Death Watch, his ability to threaten Sidious's plans was effectively crippled. Matters came to a head immediately after General Grievous's death at the hands of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Chancellor Palpatine revealed his identity as Darth Sidious to Anakin Skywalker, who passed the information along to the Jedi Council but remained conflicted in his loyalties. Confronted in his office by Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, Saisi Tiin, and Aegon Kolar, Palpatine quietly subverted his Jedi assailants with a dark-side confusion haze, allowing him to immediately strike down Kolar, Tiin, and Fisto. However, Mace Windu's mastery of the Vapad technique allowed him to match Sidious's savage offensive and direct the battle, successfully disarming Palpatine. However, Palpatine had bought enough time for Anakin Skywalker's arrival, who ultimately intervened on Palpatine's behalf against Windu, defecting to the Sith and taking the name Darth Vader. Shortly afterwards, the newly proclaimed Emperor Palpatine was confronted by Grandmaster Yoda in his holding office below the Senate arena. After an initial exchange of force attacks, the two squared off, lightsabers drawn. Though Yoda enjoyed the dominant edge in direct combat, successfully disarming Palpatine, Palpatine had managed to guide the battle into the Senate arena itself, and leveraged his force abilities to keep Yoda at bay, first with telekinetically hurled Senate pods, second with a barrage of force lightning that tore Yoda's lightsaber from his grasp. Though they proved evenly matched in the direct force power arm wrestle that followed, Yoda was hurled to the arena floor by an explosion of energy, and was forced to flee the scene by the impending arrival of Palpatine's clone trooper security forces. However, the Emperor's triumph over the Jedi Grandmaster was ultimately soured by Darth Vader's crippling defeat on Mustafar. With the destruction of the Jedi Order and the institution of the Galactic Empire an accomplished fact, Palpatine's subsequent engagements were few and far between, consisting mainly of mopping up Jedi survivors and terrorizing his own followers, at least when he wasn't leaving the heavy lifting to Darth Vader or relying purely on his Force abilities. On one occasion, he struck down 3 Jedi captives with a single blow, successfully intimidating the Verpine Jedi Bagor Sadet into embracing the dark side to save his own life. Though the PlayStation 2 and Wii versions of The Force Unleashed depicted Palpatine brandishing his lightsaber against Galen Marek on board the Death Star, the official account of the event presented in the game novelization depicted Palpatine relying entirely on his Force abilities, especially after his lightsaber was appropriated by Jedi Master Rom Koda. When his perfidious effort to recruit Marek as a replacement to Vader failed, Palpatine unleashed his powers, forcing Marek to engage him in a fatal Force duel to cover the retreat of Koda and his allies, martyring himself for the Rebel Alliance. When confronted by Luke Skywalker on board the second Death Star, Palpatine and Vader effectively engaged in a psychological tug-of-war over possession of Luke, while Luke contended with Palpatine for possession of Vader. Luke was the ultimate victor, his refusal to embrace the dark side provoking Palpatine, which in turn provoked Vader, who was unwilling to stand by while his son was murdered. Anakin Skywalker attacked and killed Emperor Palpatine, casting the reigning Dark Lord of the Sith into a reactor shaft, but not before Palpatine had dealt fatal damage to his cybernetic life support with Force Lightning. Furthermore, death was not the end for Emperor Palpatine, who successfully transferred his spirit into one of the clone bodies he kept stored on Biss. When Luke became aware of Palpatine's survival, he took the risk of willingly surrendering to Palpatine as his apprentice, familiarizing himself with dark-side lore while also infiltrating the Empire's military administration. Unfortunately for Luke, his initial attempt to free himself from Palpatine's control ended in dismal failure. Confronting the Emperor in his cloning lab, Luke attempted to prevent Palpatine's transference into a new body, and destroyed a large portion of his stockpile, but not before Palpatine arose in a fresh, youthful body. Challenged by Luke, Palpatine brandished one of the trophy lightsabers he kept stored in the lab and attacked, pushing Luke to his limit before successfully disarming him. However, his subsequent attempt to dominate Leia Organa on board the Eclipse led to a repeat of his failure with Vader, as Leia's support allowed Luke to break free of Palpatine's control. With this combined power, Luke again stepped up in lightsaber combat, contending evenly with Palpatine and ultimately slicing off his hand. When the Sith Master attempted to unleash the full power of the dark side against them, the Jedi twins retaliated with Sever Force, breaking Palpatine's control over the Force storm he had created, resulting in his latest death. His final confrontation against Luke Skywalker's Jedi party on Onderon ended with a whimper, as his last clone body was gunned down by Han Solo, while his spirit was dragged kicking and screaming over the threshold by the dying Jedi cyborg Empatogeos Brand. Though clearly an extremely adept lightsaber duelist, I would characterize Emperor Palpatine as a Sith assassin rather than a Sith warrior, given the degree to which his training emphasized layered skill proficiencies and underhanded tactics. Between his repeated victories against Darth Maul and his ability to contend with the likes of Mace Windu and Master Yoda, Darth Sidious was clearly a top-tier swordsman. However, his failures pointed to a thinly spread technique relative to his peers, which he attempted to conceal and compensate for through savage aggression. Ultimately, Palpatine firmly believed that he had transcended lightsaber combat and merely humored his Jedi adversaries by carrying such a weapon. This in mind, my position is that Emperor Palpatine's lightsaber technique stagnated, overshadowed by his increasingly powerful Dark Force abilities, with his post-mortem success against Luke Skywalker wholly predicated on unbeatable levels of Force-enhanced speed and strength, an advantage that was taken away when the Skywalker twins combined their powers.